Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you are all well. It's Friday, baby. That's it. TFI Friday, TGI Friday, and all that. You're looking amazing, by the way. This week has been kind to you. You got that Christmas glow about you. Anyway, so we get into some meat and potatoes because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and I was talking about the Idaho 4 case, and specifically the person I was talking about, they raised a question. They were like, how could one person come into this property and control everybody? If one person's on their own and they're controlling everybody, then how do they do that? How do you get into a situation where you walk into a room and you manage to control it to a degree that nobody else in the house knows what's going on and freaks out? Because what we have to kind of go by here is the proper PCA. We have to go by that information because that's what we're being told is the official story. And I know that people don't like it when you kind of go off script. So if you're not going off script and you're just saying, okay, that what law enforcement have told us, what the information that's public, that's the stuff that needs to be trusted, then you have to assume that Brian Koberger was the person who entered this house and he managed to control this situation. And what they've tried to do is they're trying to push it. Kathy Mabbutt was the person who started it all off with they were asleep and in their beds. This person, this monster crept in and he did this while they were sleeping. And many people still believe that. Many people have still got this narrative in their head of someone going into this house and attacking these defenseless young adults while they slept. And I thought to myself, but that's not entirely true. Now, it could be argued that perhaps two of them were asleep. Perhaps the initial attack, which was obviously upstairs, Kaylee and Maddie, maybe they were asleep. Maybe the person come into the house, ventured in through the door that was unlocked, into the property, past multiple doors, upstairs, into the room, and attacked. Didn't go into the room where the dog was. Luckily enough, didn't go into that room where Murphy was shut in. Because Murphy would have then woken up, wouldn't he? He would have been rattled. This stranger all dressed in black, he would have barked. He would have gone mad. And we know, because Dylan Mortensen was a witness, she heard noise that she believed could have been the dog being played with, which she must have thought was coming from above her, which I'm guessing what she actually heard was the attack happening upstairs. She heard that. So it kind of does away with anybody who thought that she was perhaps wearing headphones or anything like that, because there are still people who believe that she might have been wearing headphones. But she heard noise, she heard commotion. So that then ends, and that person then comes downstairs. You've got another attack, though, the second attack. Now, were they asleep? Because it would have to raise a question, if they are asleep, then who ordered the food? Who ordered the food? Who was on social media using Xana's phone? Now, what I'm getting at is the crime would have been easier if these victims were asleep. If they are asleep, somebody on their own could have come in here and done this crime in this manner. They could have gone upstairs and it could have played out where someone is attacked while the other person is asleep. And by the time that person is then woken and they freak out, it's too late. Nobody is roused downstairs and the same thing happens again. That plays out the same. The only thing that throws all this off is the time frame again. When did this crime happen? And did somebody utilise Xana's phone to make it look like this crime happened later? And did in fact this crime take place when they were asleep? Because there's something that just sits uncomfortable with me, and it is Xana and Ethan. The situation with Xana and Ethan, I can't work out how, if this was done by one single solitary person, and I'm going to ignore how this person decided to come into this property on this specific night and risk there being enough people to overpower them, because they wouldn't have known who was in this house and where anybody was in this house. If anybody else was staying over, if they'd gone out and been partying, how do they know that an extra 3 or 4 girls hadn't come home, or an extra 3 or 4 boys didn't come home? The amount of cars that were in the property, around this property, and the amount of people who were just in the area, and the fact that there'd been a football match that, Davis had been over and played Idaho. And you think to yourself, so ignoring all that, and you just look at the mechanics of the attack itself, it does make a lot more sense if that person or these people were asleep. But you can't have your cake and eat it, because you can't say that they are attacked in their sleep, but simultaneously say that they were compos mentis. They are actually on social media using their phone. They had ordered food. They were waiting for a food order. Who would somebody order food because they're hungry and then fall asleep? And if they're asleep, they can't possibly be using social media on their phone, can they? So again, I ask, when did this crime take place? Because, again, the only way I can see this playing out, and when we look at what was dragged out of that house in terms of the evidence, it does appear that indeed this crime happened while they were in bed. So, were they asleep when this happened? Were they asleep? Because that truly does make the most sense to me. Because I don't see how one single solitary person could have come into this house and done this crime when they are awake. Now, we know that there was calls made not long before this supposedly happened, being made to Jack. Kaylee and Maddie calling, no answer. Seemingly frantic. That kind of got downplayed. And I guess any other night you could accept that being downplayed. But this night has been a series of things being downplayed. Like the fight that Xana and Ethan had been involved in. Apparently, Xana's family were that sort of concerned that they were even going to drive up. I believe it was only because someone had been drinking, perhaps, and they'd said, "Look, you can't drive up there," so they didn't. But it was bad enough for one of Xana's family to want to drive up and get involved, be involved. But again, that kind of got downplayed. So did it happen? Did this person really think enough of this fight, or did they not? I did try and get an answer to that, but I didn't get given one. Maybe it was a too complex question. But I put it to you, and I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. Now, in terms of this crime, and I'll put it very simply, do you believe that this crime could have taken place with these young adults awake and compos mentis? Or do you believe it happened when they were asleep? And if it happened when they were asleep, then how is that possible that this time frame fits? That it happened when we are led to believe it did? And doesn't it therefore then make more sense that this happened earlier and perhaps someone made it look like it happened later? I'm not saying that's what happened, I'm just spitballing. Because these things come up. I have conversations with people and they raise questions, and then I get to thinking, the cogs start ticking over. I think, do you know what? I can't see one person being able to do this without them being asleep. But we know, or we can pretty much know, or say we know, that at least 2 of them were awake, waiting for food and on their phone. Let me know down below. I'll catch you all in the next one.